All right, what do we have up here? Yeah? Tools, right? And that's a tool box, yeah? A work box. What do you think we normally would have in here? Do you guys want to come take a look? You can come take a look and see what we've got. Well, we've got top compartments. We've got lots of little screws and wooden dowels. Got lots of things in here. Let's check what's in the other one. Let's see. We've got scissors and screwdrivers and pencils and knives. Well, we'll get to that. What do you think that is?
A key?
It looks kind of like a key, but it's got this little blade at the end. This is for cutting glass. Useful tool. That's tiny little screwdriver. Oh, that one's a wire tester. Yep, and now we got hammers. We've got a whole bunch. We got tape in there. We've got. Okay. I have a question. Let's close this up for a second. I want to know how tall Julian is now. What tool would we use? How about we measure? All right, let's give you a measuring tape. How many hammers tall are you? I mean, is this a really easy way to measure yourself? No? It probably would be easier if we... So how tall? 4 1/4 hammers. Okay. So let's find out. Wouldn't this be a better tool to use? Because then we can find out how really tall... Let's find out. Bottom of the shoe there. All right. I've got you at 51 inches. So that's good to know. All right, I actually have been slow on getting some projects done at home, so I want to see if you guys can help me. All right, this is my project. I need to hammer in these nails. What can we use for that?
Hammer.
A hammer, right? Okay, let's try. Here you go. No. We need to hammer in the nails. But that one doesn't work so well, does it? He's like, I'm not falling for your tricks here. It's not working too well, but that's probably just because we need to... Yeah, go ahead. All right, now that one, we need to screw in all of these screws too. But actually, let me give you a different one. Let's use that screwdriver.
Oh, it's in.
But, all right. Have we had enough? Yeah, that screwdriver is not going to work so well because this one's Phillips head and that one's flathead. All right. What do you think we're talking about here today? This is fun, I know, but let's go ahead and have a seat. I know you're... Oh. See, they really want to get this done. All right, guys. We can finish this afterwards, okay? You guys have a seat. It would be even better if we had a drill for that. All right, Shai. Thank you. So what do you think we're talking about today? Yeah? How to build things, maybe. I might have to write a sermon about that. Hammering in the 10 Commandments so that we'll follow the Lord better. I think that's actually a great topic. Yeah? And that didn't work, so maybe it's a sermon about frustration. It's actually, we're going to talk about, the Lord's Word is often a lot like a toolkit. And sometimes we think we have all of the tools, but what if you went to hammer those in and you couldn't find a hammer? Then you wouldn't have a hammer, right? So it's going to be hard to hammer, and if you only had the flathead screwdriver that's too big to even go into these Phillips head screws, it's not going to work very well, right? So we're going to read a story and see how this is kind of like the disciples didn't actually use the right tools when they were trying to help the Lord. This is a story taken from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, beginning at verse 14. It says that when he, this is talking about Jesus, came to the disciples, he saw a great multitude around them and scribes disputing with them. Immediately, when they saw him, all the people were greatly amazed and running to him and greeting him. And he asked the scribes, "What are you discussing with them?" Then one in the crowd answered and said, "Teacher, I brought to you my son who has a mute spirit, and wherever it seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth, he gnashes his teeth and becomes rigid. So I spoke to you, your disciples, that they should cast it out, but they could not." So you think about this boy was really having a hard time. It says that he was possessed by a spirit, and it made him foam at the mouth, and it made his teeth grit, and it made his body really rigid. So he took him to the disciples, and the disciples couldn't cast this demon out. So Jesus answered and said to them, "O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me." Then they brought him to him, and when he saw him, immediately the spirit convulsed him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming at the mouth. And he asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. And often he is thrown both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." And so Jesus said to him, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying, "Deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more." Then the spirit cried out, convulsed him greatly, and came out of him, and he became as one dead, so that many said, "He is dead." But then Jesus took him by the hand, lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why could we not cast it out?" So Jesus said to them, "This kind can come out by nothing but prayer and fasting." So, what do you think? The Lord's kind of saying, you guys weren't using the right tools. There are tools that the Lord gives us, and one of them we've talked a lot about lately is prayer, right? And how important prayer is. We haven't talked much about fasting, though. That's another tool in our toolkit. So we have things like prayer and fasting. We have coming to church. We have going to our friends. We have lots of different things that the Lord can teach us that are kind of like tools in our toolbox. But let's say you're like the disciples, and you think that you know how to do all this because you've been going around and casting out demons and helping people in all these different ways and healing them, and they're wondering, why couldn't we do it? Because maybe they were speaking things incorrectly. They thought maybe we were doing it wrong, but really what they were doing is trying to use the wrong tool. The Lord said, this one needs prayer and fasting. And this is true about all of the problems that we have. When we have an issue in our lives, some false idea that's really making us think badly, or something that makes us feel greedy or selfish, that's a perfect time for us to turn and pray to the Lord. And fasting is not just about, fasting is when you don't eat anything, right? For a long period of time. Well, fasting in a different way, in terms of what we're doing for the Lord, has more to do with how much we want the Lord. Because if you're fasting, you're really hungry. And that's what it's talking about, wanting the Lord's goodness in our lives. That's what fasting has to do with in a deeper way, is wanting the Lord so badly. So it's praying to the Lord and asking Him to help us and wanting His goodness to enter our lives. Those are tools that the Lord puts into our toolkit, which, if we're reading the Word regularly, we'll learn more and more tools that we can use to live better lives. Do you guys have any questions before we close up? Yeah?
Well, I think what this is all about is trying to think about which tools we should use.
Yes. So she said, I think this is all about trying to think about which tools we should use. That's exactly right. Very good. Yeah?
We just think through our minds and God gets some men
Yeah.
that
Yeah, we think through our minds to the Lord, right?
tools are wrong.
Yeah, so if we think to the Lord, He can actually tell us sometimes what tools to use. So that's like what praying, the prayer part is. That's very good.